Good evening, all. Today we have with us Alumni architect Shaheen Mistry from Netherlands of 2003 batch as our second speaker of this webinar series. I take pride as a teacher to welcome my student Shaheen to the international webinar by alumni of MMCOA, 8 days, 8 alumni, 8 countries. In spite of busy schedules, varying time zones and other logistical challenges, she has graciously accepted our invitation to become part of this webinar. I welcome her again. Architect Shaheen Mistry completed her graduation from MMCA in 2003. She did her post-graduation diploma in Advanced Construction Management from National Institute of Construction Management and Research, MICMAR, India in 2006. And MSc in Building Performance and Sustainability from National University of Singapore, NUS, in 2016. Shaheen is a construction management professional with over 12 and more years of work experience in real estate and construction industry, working in different regions globally. Her endeavor to bring value, expertise, and innovation to the construction industry in this rapidly evolving segment. Upholding project management principles to deliver projects within the parameter of cost, quality, and time, she has established work record of successful project delivery and has specially received accolades from her managers for meeting client expectations and for stakeholder management, thus ensuring a sustainable business model. Currently, she is based in Netherlands, working as a project management for operations at ARC and Hoek BV, Netherlands. I welcome you, Shaheen, again, and request you to start with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I thank Professor Aarti Patil and Principal Ujjwala Palsule for giving this opportunity to me to present in the alumni webinar today. It's absolutely privilege. It's an absolute privilege to be here, to be presenting to all the students, my batchmates, seniors, and juniors. Thank you so much for this opportunity, madam. Yeah, just to begin, 4 nations, 4 cultures, and 4 projects. So that's my topic for today. Just a brief journey so far. So 2003, I passed out of MMCA with graduation in architecture. I moved on to pursue construction management from NICMAR in 2006. Having done that, I moved to Bangalore. That was my first job with the PMC. I was working with Synergy Property Development Services there, which currently is known as Colliers International. 2008, I moved to Dubai, and it was recession time then, so things were a little difficult. And I had just, personally, there were changes too. So there was not an immediate opportunity to start working then. Moving on to 2010, I started working with Renaissance Interiors. That was a design and build interiors firm. Moving to 2011, then I moved to Singapore. 2016, I had an opportunity to again pursue a master's course from the University of Singapore. The same year, I started working with an environmental graphic solution company. This was SquarePeg Design. They are into wayfinding and signages. And finally, just last year during the pandemic, although it was quite chaotic, things turned around and we had an opportunity to move to Amsterdam. Just recently, I started working at Arch and Hook, just May this year, and this journey has just begun. So I think more or less you get the gist of my, journey so far. It's been quite adventurous, and I'm looking forward to much more. Again, globally, when I'm talking, I started off in Bangalore. moved to Dubai, then Singapore, and finally to Amsterdam. Being in these countries, you get exposed to the cultures that are prevalent in these nations, the languages, the cuisine, especially. I think all of us are, the preferences are driven mostly by cuisine too. But for us, languages also, sometimes it was a barrier, but sometimes a boon. We got opportunities to learn different languages. I start off with Bangalore. When you have a chance to move around in different nations, what comes to mind before you make a decision is generally the factual statistics that I've mentioned here. They are a kind of a common parameter between the nations that you look at. They also do drive your decisions of making the move or not. So just briefly, facts about Bangalore. The area is around 741 square kilometers. It has a 12 million population. It's a tropical climate. The average income as shown there. Taxation, unemployment rate. Key industry that drives Bangalore's economy is IT and banking. Languages spoken Kannada and English. Bangalore is known as India's Silicon Valley. It is a major economical and cultural hub. When you start working there, I'm sure most students here, my colleagues, batchmates, seniors and juniors have had the opportunity to work in Bangalore. The vibes that you get there, especially when I started working in 2006, absolutely positive vibes. When you're single, you're looking with open eyes, sky's the limit. So it had the right amount of energy to match your aspirations. Talking about architecture, what comes to mind when you think of Bangalore is more of the vernacular architecture. We have very many and great architects coming from Bangalore. Vernacular architecture to do with the wisdom that has been built over a period of time using local materials, incorporating sustainability in the design. So a lot of bare facades, bricks, bare concrete, skylights, and the use of all these elements use of natural elements to make a more livable environment, which is more sustainable. Here I was associated with a project. It was an IT business park, Embassy Golf Links Business Park. All the facts are given on the screen. But for me, this being my first job with a PMC firm, my learnings, I would like to elaborate a little on. For me, it was the first touch point with all aspects of project management. So moving away from architecture, but keeping in mind, definitely, of course, the principles of architecture can always remain with you. It remain at the back of your mind, but then you're moving a step further and trying to organize things to meet quality, time, and the budget. So this also gave me an opportunity to handle different projects, different packages within the projects. When I say packages, we are talking about landscape, we are talking about the concrete package, we're talking about the facade. How do you treat the facade? You have glass, you have other materials that are being used. So at that young age, just having completed architecture and then project management, it gave me a lot of freedom, especially this company, because it was new. It had a lot of young blood. There was immense responsibility because we were made to handle individual buildings at a time, but it also gave you freedom to decide. I remember my superiors telling us on a day-to-day basis, you come across problems. that's fine. You'll face it every day. But then when you come to us for finding a solution, please do come with a solution. Don't just come with the problem, and then we can discuss further. So having a problem was not looked upon as a limitation, or rather an incapacity on your part. But problem solving was more encouraged. It was absolutely an apt mold for future professionals. And I would not emphasize enough when I say it. I might not emphasize enough, but the traits that you learn in the first job often have a lasting impression long into your professional life. In my opinion, even what I do now, it kind of resonates with what I learned in my first job. Moving on to Dubai, again, Dubai is much bigger. It's around 1,200 square kilometers in area. The population is lesser. It's just 3.4 million. It's a hot desert climate, so temperatures vary between, the lowest could be around 14 in the winter months, but it could go up to 48 degrees in high summers. Average annual income. A key industry is tourism, hospitality, and construction. And tourism and hospitality being again a big part of the economy. What we observed around is that you get to see the tallest, the biggest, and the fastest in Dubai. So there's a certain amount of glamour quotient to the region, which is driven by the economy. The languages spoken are Arabic and English. It has a rich cultural heritage, and the city has definitely transformed from a Bedouin habitation to a world-class city. Every day a new project is launched, and it's like a pioneer. Pilot projects and big high budget projects. Dubai Metro was launched in 2009. Now, the reason I mentioned the metro launch here is that there were certain similarities when we moved to Singapore, which we carried forth from Dubai. It has a very cosmopolitan environment for the modern upward mobile man. So things that matter when you come to a certain stage in life, those can be realized with enough hard work and enough vision. While in Dubai now, again, this was the time of recession, so not much of an opportunity to contribute to the working environment there. But I had an opportunity then later in 2000, after 2008, to be associated with Renaissance Interiors. It was a design and build interior restaurant project in Abu Dhabi. So it was around 6,500 square feet. It was a Michelin 3-star restaurant. And again, high-class design for an elite space. My learnings, it was the first time that I stepped out of home in a multicultural environment. I started learning to adapt to different working styles. It was important to take initiative. You cannot be, your hand cannot be held along the way. You have been made responsible for a certain task, and you have to find your way through it. The support systems are there, but unless you take an initiative, the rest of the support system will not mean much. There was constant adjustment and flexibility on your part because of the changing environment. And topmost, I would say, because of the multicultural environment, people management, how do you interact with people, how do you collaborate with your peers, became an important part of the professional development on my part. Moving on, in 2011, we moved to Singapore. Now, Singapore is a very interesting nation. It is known as a dot. It is nation state. So it's a country by itself without a capital. It's a very small nation. The total area of the country is 728 square kilometers. The current population is 5.7 million. It's a tropical country, so overall the temperature throughout the year would remain the same, although there they would say you have a summer and a rainy season. Rain is experienced often, almost every day, but you may say that the last 6 months of the year could be called as the rainy season. The taxation rate is considerably low depending on your tax bracket. The key industry is manufacturing, financial, and seaport. Singapore, essentially, all commodities are imported into Singapore. It does not have a base to produce things by itself. But when I say about manufacturing, it's more to do with electronics. So they have an export for that aspect. Financial to do with banking and IT as well. And it is a major seaport. It's the world's biggest port. Languages spoken, English, Mandarin, Malay, and Tamil. So if you know English, you are absolutely set and about your work. Mandarin, Chinese is a big population, a majority there. So you have a large Mandarin population, Mandarin speaking. But for us, it was a surprise for us that once we reached there, that Tamil was also spoken. It was one of the languages which was commonly spoken. So little snippets, because once you're moving from one place to the other, things that you observe. In the metro, the announcements that are done are in all 4 languages. So that was like a first for us, and it was nice to know. Salient features of Singapore, it has a rich cultural heritage. There are, as I said, there's a Chinese, Indian, and Malay influence. So when I say Malay, they are the people coming from Malaysia. They are absolutely an integral part of the social fabric in Singapore. It has moved. It got its freedom in 1965, and ever since that time, it has seen rapid growth. What we felt living there was things worked. Things worked because there were systems in place, and there were also restrictions in place. So a certain amount of strictness towards the people makes things happen faster. That was our experience. So it too has path-breaking pilot projects. It has world-renowned universities. NUS and Singapore Institute of Management stand among the top 20 in the world. It's a key influencer in the region now because of its economy, because of many multinational companies having set up their base in Singapore. As I mentioned, there are many fines, many strict laws, but for them, it works. It makes things happen there. Extreme cleanliness, something that you will not observe, you will not experience probably anywhere around the world. It has excellent infrastructure, excellent connectivity through the local transport. There are some rules, regulations in place which do not make, they have certain rules in place that do not encourage ownership of vehicles. This is intentional so that, obviously you would rely more on the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure present in the country. Housing and ownership, rental are still comparable with other places around the world, but ownership is very expensive. Similarities between Dubai and Bangalore, just to draw upon the places that we have lived. We came across a lot of IT and banking professionals in all these regions. It's a cosmopolitan nation. It is not as glamorous as Dubai. Singapore, I would say, is more a working man's place. People work hard here to accomplish their dreams. And definitely, wherever you go, there are absolutely Indians abound. From all over the country, you'll have people coming to these nations, and you will not feel you will not miss home in terms of cuisine, in terms of people, in terms of the languages that are spoken. You keep hearing our common languages that we know in these places too. The opportunity I had here to work, I came across Square Peg Design. It's a signage and wayfinding consultancy. This was an extension of architecture, just to describe the role signage and wayfinding plays in a project. Architect would be the main consultant, and one of the sub-consultants would be a signage and wayfinding consultant. The percentage of involvement would be around, I would say, 2 to 5%. So it's not a major part that they need to be involved with throughout the project. But it's more to do with industrial design, product design. I have tried to highlight 3 projects here, which were very interesting, and fortunately for me, I have spent a larger part of my career, I would say, delving in these projects. The first one is the American Club. Now, this was a decades-old club which hadn't been renovated for a long time, and it underwent renovation. What you see here is just a brief presentation of the conceptual design that was developed. Obviously, we try to match the external facade when we are proposing the signage, and the internal decor, the internal design as you move on to the interior spaces. What is important in signage and wayfinding is we need to define the fonts that need to be used, and the signage palette that has to be used. Along with that, we talk about the materials and the color palette. So these were significant aspects of the entire exercise. Here you can see a monument sign. Now, a monument sign has to do with the first sign that you come across of the project. So it needs to capture your attention. It needs to show your way. Expanding just a little bit on signage and wayfinding. When I took up the job, it was in the capacity of a project management professional again, so as a PM. And the involvement was right from the time of concept design up to execution and handing over of the site. So we are working hand in hand with all the consultants, the architect, MEP, electrical, everybody, the landscape architect, etc. So there's points of coordination between each of these consultants at various points in time. And what we also need to define, most of it would be with the architect, at least in the initial phase. Just a little more about the field. It's to do with strategizing where the signs go into the building, the identity signs and the directional signs. If I could give you an example, if you are at the airport, when you want to look for certain information, or when you wish to, look for the toilet, then you look up to the signs, or an exit gate. Those are the directional signs that guide you through that space. So it is quite a scientific approach when you're talking about the strategy, and there's immense involvement as far as the detailing goes. Another project that I was associated with, this is Dera Waterfront Development in Dubai. The company was managing projects across Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, as well as the Middle East region. So this is one of the Middle East projects that we had an opportunity to handle. This consisted of waterfront development in the Dera area of Dubai. They wanted to regenerate that space, the municipality there, and a part of the various plots that were under development, a certain number of plots were assigned to the company. So the signages again to do with those that go into. Another example mentioned here has to do with the parking space. So when you're moving around the parking areas, you need the directional signs, identity signs that facilitate free movement, that facilitate uninhibited movement so that you are able to reach your destination. Mostly these principles that come out are supposed to be intuitive so that you know what comes next. That is basically the principle that drives the strategy. We also had a cinema theater there. So again, facade signing for that. This is termed as a crown signing. Various options that are presented to the client. This was an interior project, again, an interesting one. This was for HSBC in Singapore. The facility was a new facility. It was being renovated, and it was a transition phase for all the employees to move into this new facility. So this project was time bound to be completed within a certain budget, within a certain time. But it was quite complex in terms of a lot of spaces within that area, which had to be placemaking. We had to come up with a strategy for naming and numbering. So it was a rigorous exercise, not always simple, but a lot of permutations and combinations, a lot of concepts, alternatives that were presented. But ultimately, it came together well, and we were appreciated on this project. Another interesting part of the project was graphics that were a requirement of the project. HSBC has been in Singapore for quite some time, and they were looking at replicating or creating walls within the space to remember those starting points for the company in Singapore, as well as their vision, mission, principles. They wanted to have a reflection within the space, but it had to be graphical. Now, what we did here was we engaged a local artist. He was quite well known in his circle, and he came up with designs of the various, with sketches basically, and these were created on site over a period of time, and it was quite unique to the project, and it was the first experience where we could witness artwork being created in everyone's presence. Finally, moving on to Amsterdam. Amsterdam is a new place for us. The area is 220 square kilometers. The population is only 17 million, but if you compare with the population density of the European region, it seems to be highly dense. The climate is cold, humid, and rainy. The average annual temperature is around 16 degrees Celsius. But so the winters, the temperatures go down to 2 degrees Celsius. However, this year the winters were quite cold. They witnessed snow, which was after 10 years, which was quite welcome. The high temperatures in peak summers go up to, there are times when it has gone up to 38 degrees Celsius. But most normally it would range in the 20s. It would be 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. It is high taxation. You have high taxation in this region. So you have to be wary of the high taxation before you make a decision to move. However, the government here offers a lot of tax benefits, especially to expats. So I think Netherlands is quite attractive in the European region for a lot of expats to come and settle. The other advantage besides a certain taxation ruling is that the language that is spoken here, besides Dutch, a large number of people, a high population also speaks English. So you do not face much of a communication barrier here, and it's easy to get along or go about your work. The key industries here are agriculture, energy, and chemical. Energy, it's a big exporter of natural gas. Agriculture, a lot of food is exported from here, and definitely chemical also. Salient features, it has a rich cultural and architectural heritage. Um, we have read about this. We have come across various case studies of Amsterdam, of Netherlands as such, how because of water scarcity in the past, the various engineering methods that have been put in place to make the country self-reliant for water. At a certain point, all of Netherlands is actually under sea level, the sea level, and the deepest is around 6 meters. So they have dikes that have been built all over the country that prevent the water from the outside and to come inside. Obviously, the flooding is prevented, but it also helps to regulate the flow of water. So you come across a lot of canals in the region. How it compares with Bangalore, Dubai, and Singapore. Now, when we moved from Singapore to Amsterdam, the first thing we noticed was actually the population, the crowd, as well as a high level of, I would say, quiet. Because, moving from Dubai and Singapore and Bangalore, all these regions are very dynamic, they are very vibrant. There's constant energy that you can feel in these places. In Amsterdam, also you do feel that energy, but it is a different environment. Maybe my outlook might have been influenced by the pandemic as well, since we moved during that time. But things are slowly opening up, and we hope to see the old glory soon. I had an opportunity I started working with Arch and Hook just recently. Now, the main draw for me was the sustainability aspect of the company. Retail and fashion are actually the biggest polluting industries globally. And what Arch and Hook is doing is they are into product design. They are into manufacturing of hangers. And what they do is sustainable hangers. So the hangers are created out of recyclable wood. And the plastic that is used is definitely not single-use virgin plastic. But they are looking at sustainable materials to fill the gap of the materials and products that are available in the market currently. So this company was established in 2015. It is a startup. It's slowly scaling up now. It's headquartered in Netherlands and Singapore, and it's slowly increasing its presence globally. Its main intention is the elimination of virgin materials or single-use plastic, and to empower sole use of sustainable materials. It belongs to the retail industry. It is essentially in the manufacture of hangers, and it also has a department of fixtures and furnitures. So they are young in the industry, but there's a lot of potential for growth. And I'm looking forward to contributing more in this company. I'm working in the capacity of a project manager in the operations side. And it's something new, but again, I believe my philosophy has been throughout the years of when the opportunity presents itself, to take it up and to try to make the most of it. These are a few moments of celebration. Along the years, we are faced with adversity. We are faced with fewer and more, depending on your situation, the opportunities, the choices you make. These were a few moments of celebration in my life. I thought it would be nice to share with all of you. In 2016, I had an opportunity to do a master's from the National University of Singapore. Further, in 2018, I got a chance to Mount Kota Kinabalu. This belongs to the Sabah region in Malaysia, and little celebrations, moments of reflection when you feel that something, an hobby, a hobby which is cultivated further, it meets an opportunity and you try to realize it. And last year, when all of us transitioned to work from home culture, again, there was a lot of time at hand, and I took up that time as an opportunity to further develop myself and took up a yoga course. Briefly, learnings throughout the journey so far. Whenever you're faced with an adversity, I would recommend please embrace it. You do not know what lies ahead or what new opportunities might unfold once you say yes to that adversity. So always welcome adversity. Remain flexible. Not everything is in your control. There is only a certain amount of effort, time, and hard work. The best that you can give, definitely, but beyond that, things are generally not in your control. So remain flexible and learn to let go. This is becoming more. I'm sorry if I'm going more towards philosophical connotations in the presentation, but just a brief learning of my experience so far. I would also say carry less baggage. Now, this also literally means since we've moved places so many times, you tend to do away with things. So I think it's a good philosophy to also follow in life. Try to travel light with less baggage. Prioritize your tasks. Everything can be accomplished, but not everything together. So there might be days where you want to accomplish n number of things, but then if you prioritize, at least a few would be accomplished then. Take ownership of your decisions and choices made. When you're presented with adversity, it is up to you whether to take it on or not. But once you've decided, it would be best that you take ownership for the outcome of that decision. Definitely, as you grow, as you move on with life, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made, not just for yourself, but for your family too. But it's important that you stick to the decision that you have made and face the circumstances as they come along. Appreciate and acknowledge that someone has your back always. So when you're along your journey, especially professionally or personally, when you want to develop, grow yourself, there enough consideration needs to be given to your family members, to your friends too. But when you're along this path, please acknowledge and appreciate the fact that someone has your back at all times. And I would strongly suggest please try to maintain a fitness regime. Be physically active. It will help you do many more things. This was a short presentation from my side. It was just a journey that I have covered so far. The journey definitely continues, and there are many aspirations still in line, still unfulfilled, and hopefully I'd be able to realize them at some point. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaheen. for such a wonderful presentation. I would request audience for the question answers if you have any. I think there's one question from Mohit Sabri. Mohit Sabri. Would you recommend leaving your hometown for new experience right after 12th standard?
Right after 12th standard, I think you'd be too young. At that time, I feel it would be better to speak to the people, the family around you. They will help you make a better decision. But it's absolutely subjective. If you've been that kind of person through those 18 years where you feel you are independent, where you feel that you are able to take responsibility for your actions, definitely each one of us will make mistakes, and we will learn through our mistakes. For me, I was too young. I hadn't been out of my home till I started working in Bangalore, and that was around, I think, 26 years of age. So definitely 18 is quite young, but if you are capable, if you feel that your family is supporting you, and if you decide, then I think you're mature enough to make a decision even at that age. Ma'am, you're mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you please explain the scope to work in foreign countries? What should one do exactly if want to move abroad for career?
Most definitely, I would recommend that you start young, in the sense you take up, of course, for us, for me, when I did my BArch, I was looking at opportunities to do my master's abroad. So that would generally be a course of action if you want to work abroad. It lays a good foundation to start your professional life abroad. Besides that, keep a lookout for internships that are being offered in most of the multinational companies. What I also experienced while I was looking for work abroad is that there were more opportunities for interns as compared to middle management professionals. So what these companies look out for is to embrace or to bring in employees at a young age, especially the interns, who slowly move on to become a part of the organization. So it's easier to train them, easier to adapt when they are just out of their graduations. So I would recommend that path then.
There's another question by Sachin Vaman. He says, hi Shaheen, it seems that it has been a great journey of your life, both professionally and personally. I can very much relate with your journey because I have also worked with many project stages and with many organizations. Just a small question, do you think it is advisable to stick around in one place, one context, one's comfort, or is good to be in an exploration mode at all times?
I think it definitely, your personality would drive your decisions. For me, it was Abhay's presentation was absolutely remarkable yesterday. I meant to mention it. And one of the things that I took from that presentation was the restlessness aspect of it, as well as making an impact in the other industries as well. Not just sticking to being an architect. Maybe it's an afterthought for me, but having explored in various fields, it feels like maybe you can apply yourself the learnings that you've learned through your academic and professional life in different professions as well. Coming back to Sachin. Hi, Sachin. It's been quite long. Hope you're doing well. being in one place, it for me it was it meant becoming stagnant in one place. So I had to move on after some time. But I do understand that when you have to compromise with your profession for this too. If you remain in one place, you have a clear view of what the next steps, or at least your progression in that company professionally, would mean. You spend a certain time, you develop relationships, because all this takes a lot of time and effort, energy, definitely. So if you are of the opinion that I need to see myself in this position after so many years, you definitely need to have a plan of action in place. And more so, if you are in the right place at the right time, then things definitely convert. I do not know, Sachin. I think maybe we can take this conversation offline, but it's absolutely a very subjective decision that needs to be done. Um, for me, it's been an open book, and the opportunities presented. As I say, the journey for me still continues. I will not say definitely that I've arrived anywhere, but just move on as the opportunity presents. Sorry, maybe I've not been able to completely answer your question, but maybe we can have a talk about this.
Okay, there's another question by Ayush Hazare. He asks that throughout our journey, there are some days we feel low, and there are some times you feel low. Like, how do you deal with this as an architect?
Low in the professional aspect, maybe I can relate with it while during my last year of design, during the thesis, where we are trying to get the design right, and the multiple days that you work on it, you don't still get it. And then you arrive at that aha moment where it's actually everything is in place. But when you are low, I think you just take a pause. You go back and indulge in activities that you have not done so far. Maybe just take a run, watch a movie. This phase will also pass. It's not something that will remain with you throughout. You just need to, learn to come to terms with it, but don't be affected too much by it. It's fine. Everyone, I mean, irrespective of what profession you might be in, everyone has a low day. So find a distraction, something that you like doing, and you will get back on track soon.
There's another question by Prathamesh Bibikar. How does working in different countries affect our thinking process for design as we come across multiple cultures, building technologies, and materials?
Definitely, it improves the solutions that you bring to the table. Now you're aware of more things. You are, you're being sensitized to so many things around you while you're working. It's not just while you're in the office, but when you leave the office, maybe you're going out for lunch, you're at the food court. In the night, you're coming back home. You're traveling by a certain transport. There are many things that will touch you at various moments in time. These things would come together, and then I think it would, help you achieve what you're looking at achieving.
There's one question from Ashish Lahoti. He says, hats off to Shaheen for this wonderful journey in architecture and connected design fields. It's important to know that architecture education is starting point, and there are a lot of avenues, openings, if one wants to see and choose one. How would you like to connect your architecture education plus management education in connection to the various connected design fields?
If I can speak about my batchmates, my close friends, when we passed out of architecture, we had various options. All of us were looking at pursuing a subject specializing in a certain subject. So my friends have diverted into new media. They have gone into product design. They have gone into landscape architecture. So along the way, project management, I would say, is an extension of architecture. So had I not studied project management, still you need to apply principles of project management in your day-to-day architectural design, coming up with the design, or your day-to-day field, where you're visiting the site, or dealing with the budget. All the principles remain the same. It can definitely be applied to any profession as well, I would say, because ultimately any profession, you're talking about dealing with quality, you're talking about dealing with budget and a certain timeline. Now these are relevant to every field. So design fields, definitely you can apply these principles, but another thing I'd like to highlight is about people management. During the course of all these organizations that I have worked with, what was most important to get things moving or done was managing people and how you worked with them. So besides project management, I think managing people also becomes an important part of the professional life.
There's one question I would like to ask. You have worked on base built, interior fit out, signages, and wayfinding, and currently with product design. Which, according to you, was most challenging?
For me, it was my first job. It was to do with working on the big campus, because as I said, the things that you learn on the first job often remain with you throughout your professional life. Our seniors, our reporting managers were quite strict about having everything. You need to have every aspect, the knowledge of every aspect of that project. So that became a constant fear, or I think we were very alert at all times. Any problem that was encountered during the construction phase, we had to know what that problem was and whether we had foreseen it, before, because everything is on the drawings and you need to read your drawings properly before the construction is being executed. So on the first job, often we were on our toes, all of us, and we were young, so we were like interns. It was often a kind of an examination for us every time we were facing our seniors. Slowly, as I've moved on, as you rightly pointed out, Aarti ma'am, the focus has moved from a larger aspect of design more towards product design, where it's more to do with details and things like that. Since the things come closer, as in, you're enlarging, you're zooming into the aspects, things are more clear. So, but again, your working style, it changes from organization to organization. Attention to details remains constant throughout all the organizations. But the first job, where you had many aspects to be considered, that was most challenging for me, I would say.
What advice as an alumni you would like to give to our students?
I would say do not stop, at a certain point, in the sense, I keep repeating the words Abhay mentioned yesterday. It was a beautiful presentation. That restlessness needs to stay with you if you want to move on to the next step. When you're young, I think once you're done with your architecture, you try to define which place. Definitely an experience of a certain years would help you also give you time to understand where your next step needs to be, where your interest lies. But just keep on thinking about it, at the back of your mind. Do not let other things just cloud that thought. If you want to, achieve something, just let it remain at the back of mind. Let it keep troubling you. I think that will help you move on.
Okay, thank you so much, Shaheen. That was a wonderful presentation and good question answer session. I would request Principal Dr. Ujjwala Parsure ma'am to please give a vote of thanks to Shaheen.
So, good evening, Shaheen. It was a wonderful presentation. With the current growth phase of MMCOA, this series is very, very important for all of us, because the sole objective of this series is to connect our alumni to the current students and the other alumni who have, we have a huge base of alumni. So it seems from the chat box that everyone wants to appreciate and express this appreciation towards your inspiring presentation. Your years of research, your depth of understanding, your learning it was such an interesting way to present it, and it has really led to a very, very memorable evening in this web series. This webinar, I really appreciate your versatile personality, your urge to develop yourself through all the circumstances, and also very importantly, your very, very positive approach towards your work, as well as developing yourself into a better human being. We at MMCOA, I really thank you on behalf of our faculty, our students, and our alumni for all your efforts, your time that you have taken to share your thoughts, your experiences with all our students and alumni. And I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, both of you, and to the college. Thank you, the audience, for being patient and listening through the entire presentation. And please reach out for any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.